So what is going on right now in the state of senior living? All I know is that it's very expensive. People seem to, you want your elderly people taken care of, but that it's just growing rapidly on how difficult and expensive it is to manage it.
So a lot of people will look at, a consumer will look at the cost of skilled care in a nursing home, and they'll see, $180 a day, or $6,000, $7,000 per month, and they'll say, man, why is this so expensive? Well, a couple of reasons why it is expensive. You're asking staff to take care of your loved one 24/7. So it's very labor intensive. That's the first aspect of it. But the second aspect is that it is also heavily, heavily regulated. The government has so many requirements for skilled care facilities that I consider the government to be a nursing home's largest customer, because not only are they paying the biggest bills in Medicare and Medicaid residents, but they're telling you how to staff the facility, how many hours, what are the qualifications staff must have. And to give you just a small example, Vance, the CMS Medicare regulation book for skilled care facilities is right around 900 pages. So you've got all these regulations that you have to follow, and each one costs money.
So tell me about this. When you say they're the largest customer, I didn't even realize if Medicare and Medicaid, that covers senior living?
Yes. So just in skilled care, so in a nursing home setting, Medicare, they're two different situations, Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare would be if a loved one of yours fell and broke their hip, for example, and the doctor says you need rehabilitation therapy before you go home. They would go to a nursing home for a period of under 100 days. They would get physical therapy, they would get skilled care. That is paid for by the federal government through the Medicare program. Medicaid is federally subsidized, meaning the federal government pays part of it, but it's actually state run. So in Illinois, we have a separate Medicaid system. That is for people who have long-term care needs. Maybe they're diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia. They're going to be in a nursing home for the rest of their lives, and they don't have the money to afford it. So they go through a Medicaid application process, and they end up becoming residents who the state government, the Medicaid system, covers the difference between what they can pay and what it costs to have them.
And what sort of care is that? Are people that can't afford to pay for it? Are they, eating every day and things are well taken care of?
Yeah. Especially in faith-based not-for-profit nursing homes, you can walk through and you would not notice the difference between somebody who is a Medicaid resident and somebody who's there on private pay. They could be roommates. They receive the exact same care. The only difference is the payer who's writing the check. And from the facility side, I should add, the amount of revenue they're getting from the Medicaid resident is usually substantially lower than the amount of revenue they're getting from the private pay resident.
Wow. How is that possible?
Well, it's a combination of things. So in Illinois, the Medicaid rates for skilled care facilities have been frozen since 1994. So for 26 years, we've had the same Medicaid rates. Even though we've had 26 years of employment raises, 26 years of increased regulation saying you need more and more staffing, 26 years of additional costs for administering care, but no additional state support. So what do? You charge your private pay residents more and more and more to cover that cost. So you have a situation where a Medicaid resident, and I will give our facility as an example, we had Medicaid residents who were giving us as little as $108 a day. And we had private pay residents up around $230 a day. And again, that's the payment difference, and you're getting the exact same care and services.
So, this is mind-blowing to me because there's no situation where people would work for 26 years at the same rate. Inflation itself would just eat that away. If you're looking back in the early 80s or whatever, maybe mid 80s, for the payment schedule. When, like, do you have people that you complain to? I can't imagine that a business or even a not-for-profit just takes this lying down. How do you respond to this?
So unfortunately, my prior employer really did take it lying down. I mean, they kind of put Band-Aids and glue together as much as they could for as long as they could until I came in. And when I got in, things were so bad, Vance, that we had maxed out our line of credit. We had no cash left. We basically had 6 weeks of solvency remaining in the operation. So I was forced to not take it lying down, essentially. And so what you do is you have to play this game where you put pressure on, in our case, it was Macon County Medicaid. They're the ones that review the applications, make the determinations. You go to your political leadership and you say, look, this Medicaid rate isn't sufficient to cover the cost of a resident. You know, I used that $108 a day rate earlier. We did a study and found it cost us $168 per resident per day. So we had a $60 gap, and we didn't have enough private pay residents to cover that gap. So, you play this game of essentially hardball with people where you got to say, hey, look, I'm making the best of what I can with this situation. And if you think I can do better with these same rates, I'm all ears. The suggestion box is wide open as to how I can provide better care while losing money.
I mean, this is such a tough spot. I knew that this would be a good conversation, but I really didn't realize just the moral hazard that you run into right here. Because, you know, as I'm sitting here thinking, well, it's not fair for the private pay person to have to pay double and for the business to have to handle this. But then at the same time, you turn to the person that doesn't have anything and you want them to get care. We live in a wonderful country. We have bountiful food, we have electricity, we have shelter. And so you want everybody to be taken care of, but how in the world do you navigate this?
Yeah, and unfortunately, Vance, in Illinois, things were even worse. We were notorious nationwide for waiting 6, 7, 8 months to pay nursing homes. So you'd provide care for 6, 7, 8 months, and it'd take that long for the state to pay you. But it gets better. It gets better. We had over a dozen residents when I walked in the door who their applications were pending with the state of Illinois for more than 3 months. In two cases, we had been waiting over a year. So you have to wait. So the state doesn't process the applications in a timely fashion. You're waiting maybe a year. And then if they approve you, you got to wait another 6 months to get paid. And so you'll give $40,000, $50,000 worth of care to somebody and literally just cross your fingers in the hope that the state gets around to approving them and paying them. And if they die during this process, everything gets dropped and you never get paid a cent.
No way.
Yeah.
So what happens then if you start getting super behind on getting payments from the state? You have these people that are either not paying or not paying the full amount. Do you turn them out? What happens?
So no, to my knowledge, no skilled care facility has involuntarily discharged a resident because of this, but we almost became the first. You know, things financially were so bad for us. The state owed us so much money. We were losing the equivalent of $1.25 million per year. So easily $100,000 a month. We had no credit line, no cash. And so then we had a resident die who was about 18 months waiting for an application. So we were out almost $100,000 on this person. And that's when I went to our CEO and said, enough's enough. We've got to come up with a way to fight this. And the way we fought it was the regulations actually state that if somebody hasn't paid in a 4-month period, you can remove them from the facility. Now, you got to do a lot of things in that 120-day period. You can't just say, okay, bye. You got to do a lot of things. So we started that process with approximately 6 residents in an effort to get the state to basically do their job. And ultimately, Vance, like in the case of one resident, 18 months we had waited, a Korean War veteran, advanced Parkinson's disease. We had waited 18 months. We started the involuntary discharge process. 2 days before he was set to leave the facility, the state came back and said, we have approved him for all but, I think it was 4 or 5 months. And I said, that's not good enough. We need to be paid in full. If we cannot be paid in full for the services we're rendering, our business model is completely destroyed. We have to close the facility. So I told them, you've got 2 days to figure this out. And she said to me, the caseworker, she said, if you give me 2 more weeks, I'll have this for you. And I told her, you've had 15 months to solve the problem. I can't give you any more time. The statute says if I give you another day, I've got to give you 4 more months. We can't afford to do that. And so if you don't have it done by Friday morning, this resident is gone. She called me back an hour later with the full approval. But that's the game you've got to play with the state of Illinois in order, and this is again, just to get approved for the application, not to get paid for the services. The service payments have to come later on.